This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for my Ten of Swords creation number 1 spoiler review. Now, I have been covering X-Men greatly on the channel since House of X Powers of 10. I had huge, very high hopes for Dawn of X. For the most part, I think I've been let down. You know, X-Men's been okay here. Then X-Force has certainly been solid. Wolverine's been better than solid. Hellions has probably been better than solid. But other than that, I think it's kind of been a letdown. But I am excited for Ten of Swords. I read X-Men number 12, which was an enormous comic full of back information to get you ready for this very comic book as far as the history of Arakko after it was sealed in the breach, and Okara was split in two, and Arakko was sealed by Apocalypse along with his original 4 horsemen and his wife. Turns out the original 4 horsemen are his children. I think we learned that last week. That's definitely reinforced here. And this is going to be a weird review because the first half of this comic book is so boring. I was very frustrated. I wanted to stop reading it. I was like, I cannot believe this is the way Jonathan Hickman wants to start this event. I didn't quite realize the page count of this comic book. It's well over 70 pages. And I'm glad I kept reading because the second half of this comic book is absolutely amazing. When things actually start happening, this is a great comic book. If the last half of this comic had just been this issue, it would easily be 5 stars. It would have been probably the best comic issue of 2020 that I've read. I've read some really good ones. But because the first half kind of drags it down, unfortunately, this is a 4.5-star comic. Highly recommend, not a highest recommend. It's the first half is a slog to get through. But when you finally get there, when Hickman gets you there, and he opens the floodgates of actual things interesting happening, it gets really good. I'm excited to talk about this comic book. But before we get started, I do want to say, if this is your first time visiting the channel, you've been coming around, but you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Today is the day. It is the day to subscribe to Thinking Critical YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications. Give me an enormous thumbs up if you want more Ten of Swords content. Give me an enormous thumbs down if you don't. Either way, I want to hear your comments in the feedback, your feedback in the comment section. Did you enjoy this comic book? Was this the start you were hoping for? Did you hate it? Did you think, because the first half it was so boring and meandering that it wasn't worth this $7 cover price? Which I assert that it is, because you're essentially getting 3 comic books worth of content here, and the last half is so good. It's so good that I maintain this is absolutely worth your $7. I would rather read this than Detective Comics 1027, despite its 140-page count every day of the week, because this gets so good when we get to the end. But let's start out with the bad stuff first, because it is so boring, and it just, for the first half, it is dragged down. There's a big rehash of all the stuff that we got in the Marvel Ten of Swords free comic book day comic that came out not too long ago. You get all the tarot cards, you get the Saturnine stuff. What are they? They went and grabbed a star and put it in a briefcase for her, and a bunch of silliness like that. So that is all contained in the first half. There is one cool thing. There is one cool moment, and it's over here on the left. It's when this big creature, I assume that's actually part of Krakoa, comes through the external gate. We got the summoner. He's got Banshee in his arms. He says he's dying. It turns out that there's a war on the other side of the gates in Otherworld. The forces of Arakko have arrived. Actually, I don't think they're the forces of Arakko, really. I think they're the forces of Ammon. Combined with the forces of Arakko, they have arrived. They're trying to take over Otherworld. And apparently, Unis has been taken captive. They're holding him. Banshee is taking a near mortal wound. He's returned with the summoner. They take him to the healing gardens. That part was interesting. All the tarot card stuff, really boring. I don't know why you would incorporate this or use this as a plot device in a comic book. Tarot cards are so stupid. If you're a big fan of tarot cards, I'm sorry, but I can't take them seriously. And it's a hokey way to present information or ideas that are going to be prevalent throughout the issue. Of course, this was used in, I believe, House of X #1, all the way through the House and Pox issues. And we've seen it certainly in the Free Comic Book Day and in here as well. Still don't like it, whatever. And then we also get a meeting in the meantime where basically Apocalypse and the Summoner go before the Quiet Council. And he's like, that gate we opened, the external gate we opened? They're like, what do you mean we? We never said you could do that. He goes, people open gates all the time. And then he thinks about it. He's like, well, on the other side, there's potentially an enormous horde of demons. We should probably shut that gate. And then so they end up having to consult Krakoa himself. Obviously, Cypher is the interpreter. And he's like, Krakoa does not want you to shut the gate. You're not allowed to unless there's a clear and present danger. They're like, well, we've got to send a rescue team through there. We got to go get Unis and bring him back and kind of say the situation. Apocalypse decides he's going to lead the team because Apocalypse and Krakoa want the same thing. They want to reunite Krakoa and Arakko and make Okara. Once again, they want what was one became two. They want to make it one again. So that is the at least here, that is what Krakoa wants. So they cannot close the gate. That is what Apocalypse wants. So he is going to lead a team. We do see it right here on this tarot card. That is the team. He's with the Summoner. He's with Havoc, Beast, Rickard, Siren, Angel, Polaris. Who's that other guy? Rockslide. I think his name is Rockslide. So they're all in there. They're on the team together, and it's really boring. And to make matters worse, sometimes I've been a big fan of the white pages. Sometimes I have not. So when I've not been a fan of the white pages, it's normally when Jonathan Hickman's done it, it's because it's been too much information. When I have not been a fan of the white pages, when let's say Teenie Howard does it, it's because it's poetry and stupid shit like that I could care less about. And the white pages within Ten of Swords creation are an enormous letdown. Like this 3-page doozy explaining the map of Otherworld and all the kingdoms in the court and stuff, I could care less. This is an enormous waste of 3 pages for me. This is absolute skipperoony. There's other white page with stupid reports in them, and they all felt completely worthless. This is the worst use of white pages that I've seen Jonathan Hickman do within House of X Powers of 10, as well as Dawn of X. A huge letdown. I don't think they really brought much of value. I'm sure in 6 months I'll look back and this will be must-read pages. But in the moment, reviewing this comic book now, this was an enormous waste of time, and I'm very disappointed with the white pages. Now that we've talked about the first half of the comic, which was extremely boring and meandering, except for the one part where Banshee comes back with the Summoner. Other than that, it was just bad. Let's get to the second half where business picks up, and you can see why I call this a highly recommend, on the verge of a highest recommendation, because it is absolutely redeemed. So when things start happening, it's because Banshee, he's in the Healing Gardens, and we have Cable and his sister go there, and they decide they're going to read his mind. At the same time, Apocalypse and his team go through the external gate, and he finally sees his children once again. And we know the one with the Fireheads, Ward. I can't remember all their names. I think we know most of them by now, but those are his 4 children, the original 4 horsemen that he sealed in the breach, along with his wife, who I believe her name was Genesis. And he sheds a tear. It's obviously something he never thought he would see again. Finally reunited with his children, reunited with his family. At the same time, while that's going on, they're finally reading the mind of Banshee, and we finally get the big reveal. The thing I was absolutely waiting for. I knew this was going to happen, and this is when business picks up. It turns out that the Summoner, when he arrived with Banshee and Unis, goes out there. He goes and talks to the army. He absolutely he's in cahoots with them. He brought him there. He ambushed them. And then we get the big reveal as War, the mother of the High Summoner, sticks her staff through Apocalypse. You can see the Summoner stabbing him in the back with a knife. And it was a setup all along. They wanted to bring Apocalypse out back into Otherworld so they could murder him because he sealed them in the breach. They no longer loved their father. It specifically mentioned, We did not survive this because of love. It turns out they likely survived it due to their lingering hate and despising their father and wanting to kill him. So that was the big reveal. Obviously, I saw this coming a mile away. I think we all saw this betrayal coming. Obviously, if the forces within Arakko were friendly, there would be no Ten of Swords back. I think a lot of people thought maybe Apocalypse would immediately turn on Krakoa, but that would have been way too easy. I think that this is the right way to go. This is when business picks up, people, and the comic just goes full blast ahead, and the art just picks up too. Because I remember reading the first half, I was like, I don't remember Pepe Larraz's art sucking this bad. I was like, it just doesn't look good. I don't even like the colors by Marte Gracia. But as soon as we get to like page 35 and all this stuff happens, the art just pops, everything shines, it's action-packed, the colors, everything goes back. And I remembered all the things I loved about House of X Powers of 10, and Pepe Larraz's art, along with R.B. Silva, were certainly a big part of that. And as soon as this big betrayal happens, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. There's an enormous battle going on. You see the Starlight Citadel is at the heart of it. There's the ground forces of Arakko. I think it's the army of Arakko. I might be wrong on that. I don't even know who it is that's in there. I know it's the original Four Horsemen. The Children of Apocalypse are leading the army. It's under siege, and all of a sudden the summoner turns on him, and he basically tells Rockslide, you remember that game we played? Slices him right in half and kills him. You shouldn't have shown him your weak spots. But it's pretty cool. The mutants do hold their own. I'm showing you this page is Beast, and I believe it's Rickard, are dragging Apocalypse back through the external gate to try and save his life. He's obviously taken a very bad wound from war. We can see another one of the children trying to shoot him down with an arrow. But, Siren is going ballistic once she realizes that the reason that her father took that wound, I think it's her father, is because of these assholes. And it's good. It's a great battle. I'm showing one side of it here, but the mutants definitely hold their own within the battle. It's a lot of fun. But at the same time, while all this is happening, you've got Saturnine, who lives in the Starlight Citadel. And they want the Starlight Citadel to be a very big deal. They give a ton of lore of it. The beginning half it really bogs it down. And is she a mysterious figure? She's mysterious to me because I'm not reading Excalibur. And after reading Excalibur number 12, I can tell you I don't want to go back because it's not a very well crafted comic book. But she is a central figure in her, I don't know, her assistant. One of her priestesses or whatever is like, hey, we got a big battle going on down there. You going to do anything? She's like, well, I needed to talk to somebody. And at that point, she's actually like projecting something into the mind of Cable, I believe it is. And there's a side quest, which I'll kind of get to the end. But what she's done with that, she decided she's going to address the big war that's happening on the ground level. And she comes down. It turns out she's a very powerful figure in Otherworld. As you have this battle going on beneath her, she snaps her fingers, freezes everybody. You see Monet is going through the air right there. She's going to murder her. And she's like, unfreeze me. She's like, I think I'm not going to unfreeze you. That might not be the smartest thing to do. You seem very dangerous. Why would I unfreeze you and put myself in danger? And obviously there's the fish lady that was asking her, are we going to do anything about all these people dying right here on the ground level? And there's a kingdom. It's on the white pages. Let me go back to that. The kingdom of Dryador has actually been taken over by the army of Arakko, and that plays a key part into it. So this is the first kingdom that we see falling at the very beginning of the comic. So in her estimation, this dude with the dog head, I can't remember which one of the Four Horsemen he is now the regent of Dryadar, and he's kind of like a lord. So as everybody's frozen in the air, he starts popping off at the mouth. And, she shrinks him down. She kind of chastises him and says, listen, you are now royalty here in Otherworld. We can solve this by combat. You take your 10 greatest warriors. I will find 10 warriors to defend our realm, and we will battle in an arena of combat. And he agrees to it. She goes to Monet. I don't understand why Monet is the leader or considered the ambassador of Krakoa or whatever, but Monet accepts the challenge. and she reads them off. For the bad guys, you got the Twilight Blade, Mercy, Vermilion, the Red Sword of War, Colony, the Black Bone of Amduat, Seducer, Pogger Pog, Pearlty, Alluvium, Marumasa. That should be with the good guys. Well, you see here on the other side, he also has a Marumasa blade, the Sword of Might, the Starlight Sword, Grass Cutter, God Killer, Warlock, the Soul Sword, the Scarab, the Light of Galador, Skybreaker. So those are the 10 swords that the good guys have to go collect up and find to bring into combat against those 10 swords from the bad guys. They're going to fight it in an arena, like, I guess, Secret War style, for the fate of Otherworld, as you have the invading armies of Arakko, led by the original 4 horsemen of Apocalypse, against the armies of Krakoa, led by, for some reason, Monet. But I imagine it's actually going to be Cyclops when it's all said and done, and probably Apocalypse. It's definitely not going to be Monet. Isn't going to be the leader. There's no way that could actually happen. At least I don't think so. She certainly has not been that important up to this point. But hey, you never know. It's Teeny Howards is one of the co-writers on this, so that maybe is what is actually going to happen. But this is pretty interesting. So they have 3 days to go and select their warriors, grab the blades, put them in their hands. They're going to meet in the arena of combat, and they're going to settle it like gentlemen. And you know, it's kind of interesting. It's like Stargate meets Secret Wars meets the Sword of Shannara. I don't know. I think it's weird this is happening in X-Men. There's a lot of magic going on here, but I do want to see the battle between Krakoa and Arakko, and the sword bearers of Arakko versus the sword bearers of Krakoa. I think it's going to be cool, but I don't get how this is ever going to be 22 issues. How are you going to have, like, are they just, is each issue going to be a blade duel? Is that what's going to happen? Obviously, they are going to have to go collect the blades. Is that going to take 10 issues to collect these 10 blades? That'll be awful boring. I don't know if I'm going to be in for that one. I don't understand how this is going to be 22 issues with what the setup for this is. And then along the way, as that she's saying, she says, raise your sword. And when that is happening, we do get Cyclops. We do get Jean Grey. Cable has gone and found them, Kid Cable. And he says, Mom, Dad, I have this vision in my head that was given to me. I don't believe he realized it's come from Saturnine. And it's like this sphere. They're like, what the hell is that? Cyclops like, I've seen that before. He goes, I know where it is. And they go to it's like they're in Star Trek. They put in their coordinates, and it beams them up to this enormous spaceship that apparently has been offline. No one knows what happened to Sword, but it was offline. They turn it back online by putting in that sword that Kid Cable got back in Cable #1. I guess it's an electrical sword. They need an electrical spark. They turn it back on. Obviously, this is going to be a big part of it, but I thought the little side part was the only part of the second half that sucked. It was kind of stupid. I don't know. It's a lot of information. I'll give you that. But this is a really good comic book. I enjoyed it substantially once we got through this first half of this big slog right here. But once you get into the meat of it and the story actually starts happening, shit hits the fan. You know, there's betrayal, there's war, there's, I guess there's magic and witchcraft, and there's an agreement that there will be a trial by combat. I feel like I'm in Game of Thrones again. We're going to have the 10 best warriors from Krakoa with the 10 essential blades going against the 10 sword bearers of Arakko. And it seems interesting. I think this should probably be a 9-chapter story rather than a 22-chapter story. Like I said, I don't know how you get 21 more chapters out of this. How do you get 21 more chapters of 10-on-10 blade combat? Obviously, there must be a lot more to the story. I imagine the Starlight Citadel will fall. Saturnine will probably be taken out in the process, and the invading army will grow substantially. We'll probably see a Krakoa fall, or at least be on the precipice. They have to get to Krakoa, right? This can't just all happen in another world. This has to be the beginning. So I imagine the second half of it is maybe Krakoa wins the sword battle. They say, screw it, we're going to Krakoa anyway, and they try to invade. I don't know. I don't know how you get 22 issues out of this, but that is not my problem because I am reviewing 10 of Swords Creation #1 here. Like I said, this is a 4.5-star comic book. Highly recommend. Everything on like page 35 just picks up. The art gets better. The colors get crisper. The dialogue gets less obtrusive and boring and stupid. And stuff actually starts happening. So if you want a great comic book experience, pick up your comic book, your X of Swords creation, go to the middle, and start reading there. Skip the beginning. You don't even need it. Trust me. For people that are maybe interested in X-Men, they have not been reading House of X, Powers of 10, and have not been reading Dawn of X, this is not the place to start. There's a lot going on here. This is very difficult for me to comprehend and kind of get my head around. I'm going to have to read this again. I'm going to have to read X-Men number 12 again before we get into to the story again, just to kind of make sure that I got everything. But if you're a new reader to X-Men, this is not the place to start. If you want to get into here, you're going to have to go read House of X, Powers of 10. You're probably going to need to read some of the essential readings for Dawn of X. Otherwise, you're going to be so lost, and you're probably never going to read comic books again, because there's a lot going on here. I do highly recommend it, especially if you're an X-Men fan. If you've been reading Dawn of X, this is kind of what we've all been waiting for, and I do think the last half of it pays off exactly what we all wanted. I am excited to see where this goes. The next issue, Chapter 2, is going to be X Factor, a comic I said I would never read again because it's so awful. For the channel, I will probably read that. That's the only X-Men comic coming out next week. I don't know that I'll do a review like this, a day of. I'll probably just lump it in with This Week in X-Men on next Sunday. But we shall see. Maybe if it's great, maybe I'll do an impromptu review. But I'm not planning on it because X Factor has been bad. But I am going to read it, folks. Ten of Swords creation number 1 has got me interested enough that I'm willing to read X Factor. That's how good it was. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you really liked this comic as much as I did, because I was thoroughly entertained. I definitely enjoyed this. This is a great start, other than the first half of the comic, which is a little bit before, which was a little bit boring, folks, if you didn't know that.